Hey guys, welcome. We have in our virtual studio one of our favorite guests to the program, Zev Feldman, the original jazz detective. Thanks for joining us, Zev. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Greg. So nice to be with you. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Getting ready for the big record store day, which is in what, 2 weeks? 1 week? I don't even know.
Yeah, man. April 12th is right around the corner.
Okay, that sounds like it's about a week away, week from Saturday. And as always, this is one of the busiest times of the year for you because you always time your all your releases or most of your releases to be out and in the stores on record store day. So that seems like it's a lot of pressure on you to get that done. So this is your heavy week. So thanks
It
for
is.
time out for that.
Well, thanks for making the time to speak with me. I appreciate it. I always love chatting with you when we're talking about records or off the record corned beef or pastrami or what else we
Yeah, we had a
it
good
it
the green room. We talked about pastrami and record stores. So
yeah,
two great
yeah,
topics.
indeed.
Um, so something a little new discovery of yours. So I got the three records from Resonance here, and thank you for sending those. But maybe we talk about the two that have something in common, which are in a club that I never heard of until you put these out. So this, what is with this club, Blue Morocco? Can you tell us a little bit about the club before we go into the actual records?
Absolutely. Well, the Blue Morocco was this jazz club that was around for at least a short period of time. And I shouldn't say jazz necessarily because I'm not entirely sure if that's all that they programmed there. But this was a club in the Bronx in New York City. And it was owned by Sylvia and Joe Robinson, who owned Sugar Hill Records. This was actually a club that they had. And in 1967, a gentleman named Bernard Drayton was tasked by Del Shields at WLIB Radio to come out and record some concerts that were taking place. And among them were these two recordings that became two separate releases that we'll talk about. Kenny Dorham, Blue Bossa in the Bronx, and Freddie Hubbard on Fire. But let's talk about this man, Bernard Drayton, who's
Yeah,
such
I was
a
just
very central figure to this project.
this guy right
I
here.
That's him. That's Bernard Drayton, and this man is a Renaissance man and a terrific person that I've known him since about 2007 or so. See, Bernard Drayton has been a force in the advertising world for decades. Um, and he worked at Young and Rubicam Advertising as a creative when the Dr. Pepper, I'm a Pepper, You're a Pepper commercials were being made. And he did a lot about putting jazz and other great music into commercials, where he would work with the ad agencies. Later on, um, Bernard Drayton also worked at a legendary jingle house in New York where music was made for commercials and other places called Three Tree Productions. And I met Bernard back around 2007 because I was managing an artist at the time. And an ad agency director said, "You really got to meet this man, Bernard Drayton, with this artist I was working with." So we got to meet each other then. But as I got to know Bernard, it really goes deep with him. Um, Bernard was, besides the advertising creative, putting music into commercials and other forms of media, he was also a photographer. And he's also really one of only a handful of
Oops,
African and he's
sorry.
one of only a handful of a few African American recording engineers in jazz. Very important. I think about Ray Hall, who ran RCA Studios in New York, and I also think about the late Orville O'Brien, who recorded Friends and Neighbors, and Ornette Coleman, and Alice Coltrane, and Roy Brooks, The Free Slave, all these classic records. And then you had Bernard, but Bernard had this Revox machine, and he came out to record these concerts. So these are
This thing.
both from 1967. We talked to Bernard in the booklet. You can see the gear that he used to record this music. and it was mixed live at the time, which was great. And we've joined forces. By the way, Bernard Drayton's son, Charlie, is the drummer, has been for Keith Richards' Expensive Winos. He's played with Bob Dylan and
Huh.
so many others, and is a legend in his own right. Charlie worked with us on the audio for this project too. So it's kind of a family affair, if you will. But these are very important recordings, I think, Greg, because these are iconic musicians. But let's talk about Kenny Dorham. Can we start there for a second?
We can.
Kenny
I'll just
Dorham
keep showing
passed.
Kenny while you talk, so
Oh,
don't mind
sure.
me.
Kenny Dorham passed away in the early 1970s, I believe 1972. This is a very rare bird. We don't find unissued Kenny Dorham. He is one of the great trumpet players in this music, and his legacy has matured, and I think his appreciation has deepened over the decades. Um, he came out of bebop playing with Charlie Parker. And if you're listening to jazz, you likely spent time listening to him. He had an incredible output for recording for different record labels. I personally became aware of him because of his output on Blue Note, recording albums such as Una Mas and Trumpet Toccata and a lot of others. And he was like tied at the hip with Joe Henderson, and they had a friendship and played together. And he appears on a lot of albums, but he's really one of the greats. And when I found out about these recordings, I feel like I've been chasing Bernard Drayton for since 2007, to actually a little later than that, to see, when I started at Resonance, I really became familiar with the existence of his tape archive. So anyways, really a rare one. This is a recording with Sonny Red on saxophone, Kenny, of course, on trumpet, Cedar Walton on piano, uh, Paul Chambers on bass, and Dennis Charles on drums. But this was a working band, and this was a band, by the way, Michael Cascuna, the late, great, legendary producer, and someone who was a hero of mine, told me that he booked to play his high school prom, believe it or not.
Kenny
So,
Dorham played Cascuna's
Michael,
prom.
yes,
Crazy.
that's what he told me.
I like to see what kind of dancing was going on at that prom, but anyway, interesting.
Yeah, so Matthew Luthen's cut the lacquers for us at the Mastering Lab in Salina, Kansas. Both of these albums are pressed at Levinalist in Canada, which have been doing a tremendous job. They say 180 grams. Sometimes they're actually a little more heavy than that. They do an amazing job for us. They're an audiophile pressing plant that we were introduced to years ago from Andre Perry at 2XHD Audio. He trusts them as well, but they've been doing an amazing job for years now with all of us on our Resonance releases. And Matt Luthen's, like I said, cut the lacquers. Take a look, though. I felt it was really important to have a great writer of note that could really speak the language. Bob Blumenthal was an obvious pick for me, who actually had interviewed Kenny and known him a little bit and had seen him live in his younger years. But, anyways, I think Kenny Dorham is here to say, and I think he really matters. And it's very nice to have this new unearthed chapter for his discography. And something very important, we worked with his family. There might be some people that are going to say, Zev, there have been other Kenny Dorham records over the last handful of years. Yeah, but we paid the family and we worked with them. So this is a little different. But this is an official release, and very, very proud about this one. And I hope your listeners will enjoy it too.
Yeah, I've listened to this one multiple times, and I had the song "Blue Bossa" stuck in my head. My wife keeps saying, "Why are you humming that like for all weekend?" Like she recognized it immediately. Like that's Kenny. For those that didn't know, that's like one of Kenny's signature songs. It's like such a jazz classic. Blue
Absolutely, a
Bossa,
total standard.
a standard. And when I was taking jazz lessons, that was like one of the first songs they they run you through Blue Bossa. So that's Kenny's legacy, and there's just not that much solo stuff. He did so much sideman stuff. He's got some good solo records, but I don't know of any live Kenny records. So that's a great listen. Anything else on Kenny? You want to talk about another trumpet player?
Yeah, why don't we segue over and talk about the great Freddie Hubbard?
Two
Freddie
amazing trumpet
Hubbard on
players in one
fire.
day. Yeah.
So these were recordings also captured by Bernard Drayton. Hey, just a little sidebar. Bernard Drayton, he recorded Coltrane's Alatunji concert, by the way, too. And man, like he's really a deep catch. You got to read the writing, the interviews that we did with Bernard. There's actually a condensed statement from a long chat that we had in both of these. Really worth checking out. But Freddie Hubbard on fire. Freddie is somebody. First of all, one of a big hero of mine. Resonance at Resonance Records, we actually put out an album called Pinnacle. Uh, Boy, about 2010 or so. It was really one of the first archival releases that we did. But just to talk about Freddie Hubbard again, recorded at the Blue Morocco. Again, this is originally for WLIB Radio and Del Shields, and Bernard came down with his Revox recorder and made this tape. Freddie Hubbard is arguably, one of the most virtuosic musicians in all of jazz, and just an incredible, electrifying musician. For me, when I was younger, I think about in my late teens and especially my early 20s, I was all about Freddie, and I'm still all about him. But he was just somebody that was a bridge for me in many ways. I remember listening to so much classic rock music, and I connected with Freddie in the way that I would connect with some legendary guitarists, whether that would be Jimmy Page or Pete Townsend, or Richie Blackmore. When I listened to him, I was just blown away. And these recordings fall at a time in '67 where he had just finished a run of albums for Blue Note, of course. And then we're starting about this Atlantic Records era, albums such as Backlash and Echoes of Blue, and it captures uh, Freddie really at the height of his powers, and it's again a working band, a band with the great Benny Maupin on tenor saxophone, Kenny Barron on piano, Herbie Lewis on bass, and the powerhouse drummer Freddie Waits on drums. And this is an amazing, I mean, I say it's amazing. I need to really deepen my vocabulary here. No, but if first of all, like when you read what Stephen Bernstein, trumpeter Stephen Bernstein has to say, he thinks this is one of the most incredible documents that he ever heard. And I have to agree. I mean, for Freddie, um, it's just jaw dropping, and you listen to the cohesiveness of this working band. We spoke with Benny Maupin for this project, and Benny, was just telling us about the practicing and so much rehearsing that went into playing with these guys. They are a tight unit. And when we were coming up with titles for the album, Bernard Drayton was like, Zev, you got to talk about the heat, the intensity, how these on fire. And it kind of stuck. And I'm really proud about this release. And we had a chance to work with Dwayne Hubbard, who is a really wonderful guy who celebrates daily the legacy of his father. And, one of the best parts about my job is you get to work with these family members and meet people. But Freddie was an inspiration to me. I saw him a few times live. And I'll even share with you a little anecdote. Of all places in New York City, I moved to New York around 1995, and I saw a gig that he did at the Wetlands. And I would say maybe musically it wasn't one of the greatest performances, but I had a chance to meet him afterwards. And I'll never forget going to his dressing room, and I knocked on the door, and I just wanted to introduce myself and say hello. And I'll never forget him wrapping his arms around me. And I was this 21-year-old kid, and I was just it's just like at the foot of a giant. And I know that there's so many of the listeners here that feel the same way. I also have to say that the VSOP period in the 1970s with Freddie, I mean, he took, look, the Miles's 1960s quintet with Wayne, Ron, Herbie, Tony Williams, when Freddie Hubbard joined that band and they did the VSOP quintet, those guys were great together, and I still think about how excited I was when I heard those releases. Freddie Hubbard is just a larger than life kind of musician, and all you need to do is listen. But this is some Boss Horn. Just put it on. There you can stream a single or two from the album on all the digital streaming platforms. We wanted to give people a little taste of all the releases, so we do these singles. But this is really tremendous, Freddie, in top flight.
You also had Charles Tolliver. You got to talk to him. How's he
Oh
doing?
yeah.
He's
Oh,
getting up in age.
he's doing okay, man. And he's had a bit of an interesting period. They're celebrating Strata East right now. They're getting ready at the end of April to be launching with a reissue series. So
I think
they're doing good.
that's a series that record collectors are really dying to have because those old records are rare, hard to get a hold of. There's so much great stuff on there. So looking forward to that. Yeah, I got to see Freddie once at a college show. And are they based in LA? Because I think when Freddie passed away, it was just maybe in Woodland Hills.
Woodland
Is his
Hills,
son
maybe
still out
even
here?
I think in Sherman Oaks. No,
Okay.
Dwayne lives in Florida.
Okay.
But yeah, I believe Freddie lived in SoCal. Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. So I've heard this one also. This is a great one. Here's photos of the band members. And as always, your booklets are deep with reading, and you will become a historian and a lover of jazz history if you read these liner notes, because you put so much into the liner notes.
And you know what? I want to say something. Listen, people, I'm a little self-conscious. I'm not the great, it's hard for me to articulate everything into terms as best as possible. But I think that what I really like to do for my playbook is have the people that can talk about it. We had producer John Koenig, who knew Freddie, write the main essay for this one. But again, it's about capturing the words of the other musicians that have something to say. And we have a great team of people when we do these. I always try to pull from musicians that can articulate the greatness. But
you also got the new generation. So Jeremy Pelt is a brand new guy on the scene. I just discovered him like a month ago, flipping around on Apple Music. It's like, here's a great new trumpet player. And voila, there he is talking to you, and he's in your little documentaries about this stuff. So
man, he's been killing it for a minute. He's great. He is really wonderful. And he also has a series of books, Griot, that people should check out, that he's conducted countless interviews. I kind of like it.
He's writing books too?
He's writing books. He's an
No
author.
way.
Jeremy Pelt is wonderful.
You're gonna hook me up with him. I'm gonna get him on here.
He does these. You should speak with him because he interviews lots of musicians, documenting the history of this music, and kind of along parallels, if you will. I don't know if he would want to be compared, but Arthur Taylor was at Notes and Tones, had a similar sort of thing, speaking with other musicians. But anyways, Jeremy Pelt's a really important guy in my world, making great music, playing great trumpet, but also lending a hand in documenting and having the conversations and getting it down. But he has several volumes of that book. Check it out.
I gotta check that out. Did not know about that. Wow. Okay. I learn something every time we talk to Zev because he's the fountain of jazz knowledge. Freddie, and then there's one other record in this pile. If it's time to move on to that one.
Sure, let's do it.
Guess who it is, folks? It's Mr. Charles. Now, this one is not at the Blue Morocco. This is a sort of a different venue. So tell us what's going on with Mingus in Argentina.
Yeah, these are great. These are really cool recordings of Charles Mingus recorded on a tour of South America that took place in 1977 with saxophonist Ricky Ford, trumpeter Jack Walrath, pianist Bob Nellums, Mingus, of course, and the great Danny Richmond on drums. And this was a working band, a band that I actually got familiar with recordings that were made after Mingus, after these guys carried on. Um, this was a working band, but they made this album on it's not Milestone, on Landmark Records. Danny Richmond, the last Mingus band AD, and Cumbia and Jazz Fusion. They did a 20-minute version of this. But this was a band of Mingus's that played together. Mingus had a few bands in the 70s. Also, people that remember very much the Don Pullen, George Adams group with Danny as well. But this is a working band that played together a lot. Mingus is sounding very lively. These are recordings from Argentina that come from a recording engineer named Carlos Malero. Maybe that name might be familiar to a few people because a few years back, I want to say, was it around maybe 2022, we did these two Bill Evans albums, Inner Spirit and Morning Glory, recordings from 73 and 79 in Argentina. Well, these recordings come from the same tape archive, and we're presenting them for the first time. And we had the actual tapes to work with, which was astonishing. And we're releasing these recordings. And anyways, these come from June 2nd and 3rd in Buenos Aires. And there are two concerts. The first one is from the Teatro Coliseo, and the second one is from the Hebraica, the Sociedad Hebraica. I'm mispronouncing that wrong. I guess maybe it was kind of like a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires. And that was a last minute concert that was put together for the next day. I guess there was such a demand, but it's really wonderful. You listen to so much of this music, and I had to really put myself in the position of thinking about what it must have been like living in Argentina at that time, which was going through quite an upheaval of socialness with the government and other things. But I don't think that like American jazz artists were coming every day there. So when it happened, I think it was probably a really big event. But there's definitely a lot of excitement. We worked with Brian Priestley once again, the great British author and journalist who wrote Beneath the Underdog, to talk about Charles Mingus and give us some context about what was happening. And again, we had the tapes. We interviewed, by the way, also Ricky Ford and Jack Walrath to get their recollections of these recordings. And yeah, what else am I leaving off here? Yeah,
In
it's
the
a 16.
political upheaval, and I just had to double check, the coup d'etat and Juan Perón was just the year before this.
Right.
And I don't know if any of your authors get into if that affected things or not, but it seems like I don't know, risky even for American jazz people to be down there when so much craziness was going on. I don't know if that's mentioned in your liner notes or not, but
It's mentioned when we were talking with Eddie Gomez and Marty Morell, I remember, for the last Bill Evans release. It's in the liner notes. I mean, we've talked about that. There was definitely some shaky ground, so to speak, going on there. But again, think about this music and these musicians as musical ambassadors coming to this country and playing this music. I'm happy that they did. I'm really happy that we have these tapes, that we're just in this private collection. And we've literally been able to turn water into wine, so to speak, by, working with the musicians and paying them and making this an official release. It's not just some tape that's floating around, but now the family is a participant in it. This is an official project licensed with the full cooperation of Jazz Workshop Inc. and the Charles Mingus Estate. And this is our second release because we did the live at Ronnie Scott's release just a few years ago too. So it's really exciting to work with them again. Very happy about this, and it's a terrific release. I hope
this is
the listeners will enjoy it. 3
one of
LPs.
Mingus's later recordings, because he died only a few years after this. but
That's
he
right.
sounds like he's in great form. I mean, there's no indication. I don't know what his health was at that time, but late in his life, maybe one of his last live recordings. But it sounds great. It's got some of his big, well-known tunes on there, Pork Pie Hat, etc. But it's got some other surprises that I wasn't familiar with. So it's a good all-around 3 discs to get through. As you
And
said.
there's a lot of enthusiasm and passion coming from him on the bandstand. All you need to
Mhm.
do is listen to his banter. It's it's full Mingus. It's really wonderful. I gotta pinch myself. I can't believe I get to do this for my job. I
I
mean,
can't
when
believe there's
people
anyone in the world doing this, and so every time we're on, I tell you how jealous I am of your life, flying around listening to jazz all day and meeting these great people and thumbing through the archives. So
I feel really lucky, and I just I want to take a moment just to like thank everyone out there who's been supporting these releases. It means a lot to me. We can't do it without the support of everyone that goes to the stores or tracks these releases down. It's a it means a lot to me. So anyways, we got to keep going. We have a lot more projects that we're working on. It's going to be a very exciting close of the year. I'm already working on releases for Record Store Day for November, for Black Friday, and there's going to be Sun Ra, Bill
more
Evans.
Sunra, more Pillar.
There's going to be some good stuff coming. So
Can't get enough of that.
stay tuned. Yeah, man.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
can. We can't get into it too deeply, but if you just want to mention any other records you got coming out for Record Store Day next week, which ones I'm not as familiar with, but
Yeah. Well, we're
just
doing
make them brief.
sure. Yeah, I'll do it really brief. Here's just a few other things that are coming. First of all, on Resonance Records to close it out, we're doing a reissue of Smokin' in Seattle. This was a release, a single disc LP that came out, I want to say back in 2016. And these are
Wes
recordings
Montgomery,
that
I
they
assume you're talking about.
Yep, Wes Montgomery, Wynton Kelly trio, with I'm sorry, Ron McClure on bass and Jimmy Cobb on drums,
You said
recorded in
re-release,
1960. Yeah, we put this out again in
so I already have this.
2016.
Okay, so
It's
I
sold
think I
out,
have a copy of it.
but this is a new remaster back from the tapes again. We
Mhm.
worked with Matthew Luthans this time. It was actually we caught some heat on an edit. We did a fade out at the end of side one. This time it plays to the very end, and it's got different audio. It's got a different cover to it as well. And I was in a record store last year. I saw it going for $100 on a collector's wall, and I said, that's ridiculous. We had only made one or two, I think we made a couple of thousand. So we just brought it back out again, and their shipping sold out. But if you didn't get it the first time, it's another chance. And it's a new master. Also, I'm working again for my 13th production with the estate of pianist Bill Evans. This will be on Elemental Music, but recordings from Finland captured from 1964 to 1969 with three different trios. These come from YLE Radio in Finland. Um, these are recordings that never existed in any discography before. I guess you would have had to record them off the radio at the time, but they've never been leaked. And very exciting to bring these out. But we have recordings with drummer Larry Bunker and bassist Chuck Israels, the trio with Eddie Gomez and Marty Morell, and also recordings from another tour that had bassist Niels Henning Orsted Pedersen, the great um, from Boston, my man on drums, forgive me, and Lee Conan, Alan Dawson on drums is who I was thinking of. I talk about those rudiments, folks, something he was known for, and Lee Conant's on saxophone. So three groups of Bill Evans captured live over the air. Bill Evans is an amazing artist who is continuing to inspire and turn on new generations of fans, which has been great. So we're
Lee
putting that
Konitz.
out.
Oh,
That's called Further Ahead. Yeah, man.
let's see.
Check
Don't
that
hear
one
him
out.
too much with. Haven't heard Bill play with too many sax players, and is that later stuff? That's
Right.
good.
There were a couple of there was a European tour where some of this music was documented. And last but not least, although it's not a quote unquote jazz release, it's an iconic artist. And I'm talking about the late, great country and western icon, Patsy Cline, with a 2 LP collection, 48 tracks of music that's never been released officially before, including recordings that are earliest known on record from 1954, captured for WARL radio in Arlington, Virginia, recordings that are being made available for the very first time from the Don Owens program. It was a television show here in the Washington area. And uh, it's very important. It's a very important release. Patsy Cline is an artist that means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but she's timeless and an icon. And I'm really a big fan, and I think she's wonderful. And the opportunity presented itself last year, Greg, when I got a phone call from a recording engineer named Dylan Utz in Frederick, Maryland, via my friends at Joe's Record Paradise. And Dylan wanted to know about these recordings that a late friend of mine, an older gentleman named Leon Kegerice, had made in the 1960s. He was a Bendix TV repairman, and he figured out a technique of recording audio directly from a television set.
Hmm.
So that was phenomenal. That makes up 8 releases, 8 of the tracks on this collection that came from all different sources, all sorts of, duets and interesting recordings, transcription discs, things that are available officially for the very first time, and a lot of music that's making its debut. So
So
I leaped at
Patsy,
the opportunity. I just was like, and it's one of the most important projects that I've ever been involved with, and a chance to be a part of an amazing team along with my co-producer, George Hewitt. Dylan, as I mentioned, who's a co-producer and worked on the audio. And we worked with Julie Fudge, who is Patsy Cline's daughter, on
hmm.
this release too. Just
So
amazing.
remind us. So Patsy was like this mega country star that sort of moved over into popular. She had hits that were just pop hits, but she had an untimely demise. I think. What's for those youngsters? Remind us what happened to Patsy Cline,
When she
if you know.
passed away in a plane crash, yeah,
A
without
plane
getting
crash.
too into the
Yeah.
details. But she's a very important artist who
Mhm.
I think maybe, it's hard to categorize certain artists, but definitely a country and Western legend. But you know what? If you talk to a lot of folks and maybe they don't have a whole lot of country music they're familiar with Patsy Cline. She matters, she's an icon. Her music has reached a lot of people, and it continues to reach so many. And I want to say for this package, my designer, by the way, is John Sallards that did the Grammy nominated Nat King Cole Hit in the Ramp box set. We're all music geeks, and I work with an incredible group of individuals. But it's a wonderful package. You got to even read the booklet. We even interviewed Katie Lang and Ray Benson and Marty Stewart. And we have Marty Maluish, the journalist who's author that's written so much about Patsy Cline before. But this is a fully sanctioned release. We worked with the Grand Ole Opry and the Country Music Hall of Fame, and we obtained all these sources from a whole slew of people. Probably was one of the most complicated productions that I've ever been a part of, only because of the number of rights holders that were involved. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I'm very happy to see this one come over the finish line, so to speak. And on vinyl, we're shipping sold out. There's going to,
Wow.
I encourage people to look it up. There's a CD available too, and it'll be available for streaming and download. But Patsy Cline, Imagine That, The Lost Recordings. Very proud.
Maybe we'll see you on the Country Music Awards next year. The best
Never,
archival release if they get that
hey man, crazier
with
things
the
have
cowboy hat
happened.
on.
I don't even, yeah, you know what, man? I don't even need a hat to talk about my love for Patsy Cline, though. And yeah, man, I hear you.
My
All right,
wife's a big
you
fan.
never
We
know.
had a bunch of her records. One of
Oh, that's great.
the few country artists we have. Willie, Patsy, Johnny.
Hmm.
That small group. Zev, you got a busy couple weeks here, getting ready for Record Store Day. You've got what did we just talk about? 6 records coming out,
Yep.
and probably 3 times that many discs. So just good luck. And I'm sure most of these, if not all of them, will sell out. So folks, you got to line up early to get your hands on the Resonance Records releases.
And I want to say too that the RSD marketplace is a great place, or even on Discogs. At the end of the day, they're going to be listing these. The brick and mortar shops will be selling them online too. So if you didn't find one at your store, folks, don't give up hope. Go online.
Well, I don't know
You'll
if you line up.
probably be able to
I don't know if
find
you
them.
go to Record Store Day at those stores, Zev, but the line is around the block. You get up there with your list and you say, "Do you have this? No. Do you have this? No. Do you have this? No." And the guy in front of you bought the last copy. So then you go to eBay or online and try to get a copy. But these are all limited releases, 2, 3, 4,000 copies, and they go fast. So I'm not. Thank you for sending it to me, so I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. to stand in line.
Of course, for you, my
It's a
friend.
pain, and it's always a
Pastrami on you next
disappointment.
time.
We need to do an episode on pastrami pretty soon.
Well, live from Langers
Live from Langers,
or
on
Brent's.
location at Katz's. So there was a thing on Instagram the other day. It said Katz's is opening up an LA branch. And I'm reading it, I'm watching it, and it said April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day. Katz is never coming to LA.
I think they've done pop-up. I think there was a
Yeah.
pop-up or something that they did. And I'm not embarrassed. They brought back 7 pounds of pastrami. 2 of those are going to my dad, and then they do a frozen by the pound vacuum seal thing.
Wow.
So now I'm about 3.5 hours. I live here in Maryland outside DC now, but I take the train up quite a bit to New York. And yeah, man. What can I tell you?
I like the pastrami and chopped liver sandwich. Not too many people go for that.
Oh, I love that. That's really
got
good, man. And how about corned beef, pastrami, and chopped liver? Have you done that? I've done the
All
trifecta.
3? That's crazy,
Yes.
but I'll try that someday.
It's also good just to have scrambled with some eggs too. I really like it like that too.
You're making me hungry.
But unfortunately, what happens is when I open one of these pounders, it's gone before I know it. I can't stop swinging by the refrigerator.
They
So,
pre-slice it for you?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all they do this by the pound. I swear they're not a sponsor of this podcast, right? But anyways,
We'll try to get them on here. I would do it for some free pastrami. I would talk
And
to
by
them
the
for a
way,
couple hours.
did you see this on Instagram the other day? They turned Katz's into like a nightclub, and it went until like 4 o'clock in the morning. There was like DJs, and the place was packed. Did you see this? This was some
No,
reel
that
that I
was
saw.
not
I
April
couldn't
Fool's?
believe it. No, it wasn't. It was actually real. I was there talking to the meat slicers yesterday about it.
Well, in New York,
pretty
they never
cool.
have to close. I mean, what's the point of them ever closing? They should be open 24 hours.
That's what I say.
The line would be out the door.
Well, the line's out the door all day long, usually. That's the thing. Ever since Carnegie closed, especially more people than ever flocked to Katz. That was always my spot, anyways. But I'm really happy for Katz's. It's so great that talk about a tradition and a legacy that's still being celebrated. And it never changes. It's consistent. Oh my God. I'm ready for the pastrami podcast.
Maybe you could become the
start?
pastrami detective too as your second career.
Don't
I
get me
know at least
started.
3 people that want to go on that journey and be the pastrami detectives. I told you.
Oh man, I'm ready for that journey. You and your family, they sound like great folks. I want to have a powwow sometimes. Let's get together in LA. I'll meet you. I'll see you at Brent's or Langers, okay?
Okay, we'll pick a good one. Okay,
Maybe
love
Nate
it.
Nals. They're out your way too, I think. Nate Nals, right? Didn't they open one up? Are you near Thousand Oaks?
Yeah, my office is out there.
Yeah. All right, I better go take my Lipitor now. I can feel my
Why don't
cholesterol
you
rising.
get ready for the day here? So thank you so much for joining us, and good luck. All these records will probably sell out on record store day, guys. And thanks again for joining us, Zev.
Thanks for all your support.
And
Thanks
goodbye.
everybody out there. Thank you.